Hello, folks. Welcome to This Week in Astrology. It is the week between eclipses. This is always a very testy time. Do we have fewer aspects and events happening this week? Yes, thank goodness. But it is still between eclipses. And so we are in this kind of portal of the eclipses. Things are very much out of control, very much, oh, I blanked. Probably because the eclipses. Very much, very chaotic, very changing. During eclipses, it always feels like I was listening to someone else's, I'm so bad at names. I should get better because then I can attribute people's work to them. But someone that I follow who I really like, who's an astrologer, was talking about how it's like 6 months happening in 2 weeks. And that's really what it feels like. And so allow that energy to happen. The only work that I suggest doing during eclipses is like psychic work, of like delving deeper into your psychic connection, knowing that the energy is chaotic, so you do have to use a lot of protection. But I do find that there is more access to things during eclipses. So if you want to do any work, it's more about deepening your psychic connection and allowing the universe to kind of sweep you along rather than like a fixed plan, if that makes sense. And then anything material, anything else it's just, there's no point in trying to get it done. It's a good time to release and settle in and allow things to happen. It also is a nice way, kind of like I do with the Mercury retrograde, of kind of pushing back against capitalism, is taking some more downtime during eclipses, allowing the chaos to happen, allowing things to happen. Also knowing that a lot of stuff is going on in the world and there are a lot of things are going to be happening. I'm recording this before the first eclipse, and so I don't know what the eclipse is going to bring. Definitely stuff on the world stage, people's behavior being called into question, big scandals, um, big chaos, big energies. I think also these eclipses are a big question about how, like, what is a scandal anymore, right? Because people do heinous, horrible shit who have money all the time at this point, and nothing happens to them. Like, I wasn't very old at the time, but I remember like Bush era and Obama era, like people did criminal activity and actually had to step down from office. Was it fair? Were the victims treated well? No, because we live in a really sucky world. But it's come to a point where people can do heinous, heinous things and people will just go along with them if they fit their ideals or if they are also racist. And so I do think these eclipses are going to bring up, like, okay, so what is bad behavior? What is criminal action? Are we going to hold people in power accountable, or are we going to continue to allow them to do things that are harmful? So just know that these are topics and this is the chaos that we are in, on top of the aspects I will be discussing. So it is kind of sparse. There's not tons happening, but what does happen is very impactful. So we start off on Monday, Mars square Neptune. This is such a tricky one. So Mars is in Cancer, Mars is in fall. It's not super thrilled in Cancer. It struggles to move forward, to shift things. Mars can be easily overwhelmed or overstimulated in Cancer. And square Neptune retrograde, it very much feels as though we want to take action. We want to know what to do. We have a lot of instincts when it comes to the action we should take, but how to do it and when to do it feels completely out of our control. And this can be a very frustrating aspect. It can be hard to get your hands on things. Now, Mars square Neptune, when used functionally or spiritually, is a time to pause and ask yourself what you want and ask yourself what you believe in, and kind of push the fringes and the edges of understanding and opening up things to mystery and to being unknown, like being okay with not knowing, but also exploring it at the same time. But you're not going to find like closure in that. You're not going to find a solution. You're just going to be exploring. So I would encourage you to explore, to allow yourself to feel frustrated, not being able to get things under your feet. Also, just a reminder, if you have any planets at 14 degrees of Aries, you are currently in a very crunchy place with Saturn. So this might be amplified from my folks with 14 degrees Aries placements. There's just a feeling of of wanting to do something and knowing what you want to do and not being able to, and then we layer this Mars square Neptune, and for you specifically, this group, it's not fun. um Things will get better once Saturn moves off of it and we get out of this Mars square, but not till then. So it's an opportunity to explore spiritually. Also, it can be a chance to kind of ask yourself where you've been expecting too much from yourself, or where you've been delusional, and not in a sense of like you believing that things can be better. That's not delusional. You deserve better things. But where maybe you've been putting too much pressure on something to bring you joy and fulfillment rather than kind of allowing things to be more organic. There might be a place in your life or somewhere in your spirituality where you're putting a lot of stress on something to bring you happiness. And while a lot of things can bring us happiness, money can bring us happiness, which I firmly believe in capitalism. Now, at a certain point, money can't buy you happiness, but your needs being met can buy you happiness. Being able to take a vacation can buy you happiness. Love, all these things can give you happiness, and they can, but putting all of your pressure on one thing can be a bit dangerous and shaky, and also can deprive you of joy in the moment. So, this is an encouragement to release pressure on one thing being the thing that will bring you something. Many things can and will bring you joy over your lifetime. Maybe not in these few weeks, but allow yourself to go through the spiritual process of resistance and frustration. Angry tears might be something that you need to cry this week. So open yourself up, allow yourself to feel that. I will say, bright side on this day, we do, however, get Venus sextile Jupiter. And this is really nice. Jupiter is in Leo and Venus is in Libra. There is a nice harmony and connection. This might be a fun day to meet someone, or to just create a bond or a friendship with someone random. With the eclipses, who knows? It could be really impactful. It could not. Under this energy, I'm like, a lot of predictions go out the window, because by the end of it, you don't know what's going to happen. But this is a moment of connection and care. It's also a great moment to, if we're talking about that Mars Neptune idea of like putting all of our emotional eggs in one basket and believing that only one thing can give us something. This is an opportunity to open yourself up to all of the possibilities of what can bring you joy and what can bring you fulfillment and happiness, and how to get that, and an opportunity to reconnect with friends and family that you may have gotten distance with. But it's a beautiful moment of reconnection and understanding. At the same time, we also have Mercury trine Saturn, which I think is interesting because there is a functionality. Is Saturn retrograde? Yes, but Saturn retrograde can be a little less exacting, a little less demanding. And so while we're dealing with this frustration with Mars, there's also possibility too, which I think might actually add to the frustration, because you're like, I can see it, I can taste it, I can tell it's coming, but where is it and how do I get there? Not things that will be answered on this day, but looking at the things that you do have and the ways that you are filled and cared for. Very important. And with Mercury trine Saturn, the thoughts and the ideas and the plans that you come up around this time actually have a possibility of getting traction, of moving forward. Just probably not until we're on the other side of these eclipses, to be honest. So not until beginning of September, most likely. But this is the time to plan, to strategize. There is an honesty with Neptune retrograde and this Mars square. So like being like, okay, where am I disappointed? Where have I felt that I am being betrayed or harmed by other people? Where am I holding resentment? And here's the deal. I believe in holding grudges. I believe in not forgiving people. Like, some people do not deserve forgiveness. And I actually call it the doctrine of abusers, because I have never met someone who harmed someone and genuinely felt bad who demanded that person forgive them. I have harmed people in my life and I've never expected them to forgive me. And I don't need them to forgive me in order for me to recognize the harm that I've done and to heal and to work on myself and make myself a better person. It's not necessary. Forgiveness, well, maybe for some people it works as closure. There's plenty of people I don't forgive, and I don't feel bad about it. The people think the opposite of not forgiving is like resentment and sitting and being sad and angry. The opposite of not forgiving someone, the opposite of forgiving someone is not caring. I do not care. Like, you are a horrible person. I will not be forgiving you. You don't deserve forgiveness, especially if you have not changed. Um, Welcome to my fire sign, Mars square Neptune energy. um, but with this Mercury trine Saturn, you might be, I'm not talking about not forgiving, I'm talking more like resentment and holding on to heavy energy. You might be holding on to something that is holding you back a little bit. And the reason I wanted to make that delineation is I was like, I don't want to say that you need to go around forgiving people, but letting that go, releasing it in order to move forward, being like, yeah, that person hurt me and they suck. I'm never forgiving them, but I'm going to move on and live my best life because that person is not worth my happiness. That person is not worth me inhibiting and harming myself. And so this Saturn Mercury trine is us moving forward and through that energy, claiming our heart's desire. This is a great day actually for manifesting, even though it will be frustrating. We might be confronted about the ways in which we're manifesting and about where some of our doubts are. Like if we're manifesting something we don't really believe it's going to happen, or we feel like we're going to get disappointed, asking ourselves why, and accepting that yes, we also live in really broken, fucked up systems. So we have been disappointed before and we haven't gotten our needs met. But now that we know that, and now that we have been working on things and have found creative solutions, what else is holding us back? What are things that are blocking us? And I'm not talking about, like I said, the systems we're working with. I'm talking about, constantly maybe trying to protect yourself from disappointment. So at some point that can become a huge block, because then you constantly just get the bare minimal necessities because you're so afraid of dreaming big that you never dream at all. So this is a challenge to dream, but to dream functionally, dream within a world of stuff you will actually want and actually get. A lot of people dream of fame, but have you considered what your life would look like if you have it, right? I'm not saying that you shouldn't want to be famous, but some of your time will not be your own. Your image may not be your own, and that's totally fine, but know what you are manifesting, know what you are desiring. If you want a romantic relationship or something, but you also like your privacy, make sure that you're manifesting that kind of relationship. You want companionship, you want care, you want mutual respect, but maybe you don't want, maybe you don't necessarily need or want someone who's clinging to you like a sloth, which would be me in romantic relationships. Just being exact, being like, I want a travel companion. Like I have friends, and I have a friend who watches these, who will know who they are, who just wants someone to like spend time with, experience pleasure with and have fun, but really enjoys their own space. They want to travel, they want to connect, it really has their own space. It's about identifying what you actually want and asking for it, rather than just kind of going with an ambiguous like happily ever after. And I think for a lot of you, you might have fallen into some traditional things that you haven't fully processed. Now, if you work through those things and go, no, I still want them, that's one thing. But say that, your parents bought a house and had a couple of kids and had a yard and these things, and you now want that. Good. Have you ever considered if that's what you actually want? If yes, and you still want it, great. But it's about that processing. It's about going through the steps of like, is this something that I actually want? Or is it something that I thought I wanted? Or is it a dream that I had in the past that I have now grown past, which can sneak up on us a lot. My example for this is always, I wanted to be an opera singer, and it was definitely the path to where I am now, but it's not the thing I was going to do. And one of the things, besides the rampant abuse and violence and exploitation in that career, was the fact that I was like, oh, I wouldn't really like traveling that much. I wouldn't want to travel as much as a working opera singer has to travel in order to have a career. I like being home and I like being with my dog. And when I am in a romantic relationship, I like being with my person. And I was like, so it's not for me. And that was kind of a Mars square Neptune moment. It took me a long time to get there, frankly. But once I did, I was much happier, and it shifted my perspective and opened me up to then putting more of my time and focus into the work that I do now. So lots of stuff happening Monday on the 17th. Then we go all the way to Friday, which, to be clear, just because aspects aren't happening doesn't mean we're not playing them out. So things are still happening. We're just dissipating and moving through these energies and aspects while still being under the energy of an eclipse that just happened. Friday, we get the Venus opposition to Saturn. This can be a testy one. It also can be a challenge to current relationships. It could also be if you have, if the eclipses don't reveal something about a relationship to you, this will. It may not be a relationship revelation with closure, but maybe someone's been acting or moving a certain way and you're not quite sure what's going on. You could get kind of like a sign or a revelation about how your relationship is actually going with Venus opposed Saturn. if there's a friend that you've lost touch with or just hasn't been responding to your text, you will probably very likely get a response, if not from them, from somewhere else about why they have been delayed. Maybe it is because they've been really busy, but it could also be because they're upset with you and like didn't tell and like just don't know how to communicate it. And this is not to feed your anxiety about that friend, but it's just explaining that like it could be as simple as they're too busy, or it could be like there is actual conflict with the Saturn opposition. There probably is conflict. If you're conflict avoidant, I am sorry. Conflict is not easy, but it is important for you to make a decision about how you're going to handle it this week. Um, Venus oppositions to Saturn, depending on your own chart, can also be about um, feeling grief or loss or constriction around a relationship or around relationships, a sense of disappointment. Also, with Saturn opposing Venus in Libra, it can also be you looking at what you don't have when it comes to relationship and connection and feeling that loss that we can find in Saturn, where that restriction and asking, why don't I have these things? Why aren't these things mine? And I encourage you to sit with this and to allow it to process and to happen. Um, but also, I think this is an opportunity to not blame yourself for everything, to be like, just because something hasn't happened doesn't mean that I did something wrong. It's a very kind of Christian outlook, very puritanical. But maybe things haven't happened because there's something better for you. Or maybe something didn't work out because it would have kept you from going down a path that you really need to and deserve to go down. There's more than one reason why something doesn't work out, why your family doesn't accept you, all of these things. I do think if you have been putting up the good fight, this can be a lovely reconnection with a little bit of an edge. But if you are in the middle of something, it's definitely you kind of having to come to terms with it or getting some information on why something hasn't been working and functioning. And it's not going to be easy to receive because Mars and Saturn, not Mars, Saturn in Aries is rough and direct and aggressive. And Venus in Libra is soft. And while there is that edge of the air energy, it is still the softest, most gentle of the air signs. And so there is a sensitivity in this moment, and the person acting out the Saturnian stuff might not be gentle. So if you are Venus in this situation, protect yourself, set boundaries, don't let yourself get trampled. And if you are the Saturn person, recognize that other people around you might be a little softer than you are. So be gentle with them. It's also an opportunity to kind of look at the systems and the ways in which you connect and how you have been influenced in your connection by society. Venus opposed Saturn is a great time to unpack why things are the way they are relationally in your life and what are things that you want and can do to change it. Knowing that it's eclipse season, there's, like I said, most of this is about processing and holding space rather than doing something. But have these thoughts. I think this is an excellent time to pop out a journal and to put some bullet points down so that you remember them after the eclipses. And then you can get going on those. And like I said, pretty quick week. On Saturday, we enter Virgo season. We go into another season in the middle of an eclipse portal, which is always whiplash to me because we're going from Leo eclipse energy, Leo season energy into Pisces eclipse energy, Virgo season energy. And it is going to be a very different vibe. Very different. Unlike, the Libra Mars stuff shifting, I find that to be a little more harmonious with the Jupiter Mercury energy. So big shift from a mutable sign into a fixed sign. So prepare for that. I will have the video for Virgo season out, which will just go over the major aspects of Virgo season. As always, I do the new and full moon videos, which will have more information about the eclipses. You can go check those out. And also I will be dropping the shorts or reels, depending on which platform you were seeing this on. Well, you're not seeing this on Instagram unless you're in my stories, but I drop the shorts into both Instagram and YouTube, and those will be the tarot readings for each zodiac sign. Anyways, my loves, I'm going to give us a quick peek into the week next week just so you can be prepared, but we have a lot of big shifts happening. Mercury is going to move into Virgo. We've got that Cazimi on top of an eclipse and several tricky squares. So know that we're heading into the final stretch of the eclipses week after this, but in this week we have to hold space and we have to allow the eclipses to do their work and to adjust and realign us, which is not always fun, but it is definitely necessary. Anyways, my loves, many blessings for this week. If you enjoyed my content, please like and subscribe, and I will see you later. As always, you can book a reading with me on thekeenwitch.com or hit me up in my DMs on Instagram. Anyways, many blessings. Bye.